Hello, UNC Hoops Talk listeners, Tar Heel Nation. Um, yeah, it is a dreary, at least here in Tennessee, it's very dreary and depressing Monday. This is the podcast that I never want to do. That is a podcast after the Tar Heels have lost in the NCAA tournament. And yeah, it sucks. There's not really any way to get into that. I'm going to hopefully quickly, because nobody really cares about the stats of the games or anything like that, but quickly talk about the games. We'll go a little bit more in depth in the Tar Heel games, of course, because that's what this podcast is mostly about. But also jump into just the whole bracket. And actually, I just realized my bracket's not here in front of me, so maybe I'm gonna have to pull one up or figure something out there. But go through the bracket, go through what happened and all the craziness. I guess maybe that's why we should have expected it a little bit more than what we did. But the craziness that has happened in the tournament just seems like, if it hasn't for sure, been just a crazier than normal tournament, just a monumental, crazy tournament, at least half of it. And then also take a little bit to look at what is like games coming up, matchups for the next round. And not that you want to follow my picks, as can be seen in the picks that I picked before, but will kind of give my take on the upcoming games and all that stuff. So yeah, I guess we'll jump into North Carolina games first, and we'll get into the bracket stuff and all that good stuff. But North Carolina opened against Lipscomb on Friday. Let's see what time it was. Friday afternoon. No, Friday afternoon, 2:45 Eastern tip. I think it ended up being closer to 3 than that. But like I said, don't want to get into too many of the stats or anything. Kind of what we expected. Lipscomb held or stuck around probably longer than a lot of people liked or anticipated. We didn't completely blow them out. It was a competitive first half. Late in the second half, we go on a little bit of a run to get a 9-point lead at the halftime. It was 43-34 in our favor. And then the second half, we just kind of kept it rolling and kind of just kept gradually pulling away. And they were hitting threes at the beginning of the game to keep it close. And then eventually they didn't fall. I think our defense did pick up some. And we ended up with an 84-66 win, which is good. I think we were favored by, well, I guess I said 19.5 was the last I saw, but I said that to somebody and they said they saw it was a 22-point spread. So somewhere in there, we didn't quite get that 18-point win. Not that matters a lot. Who cares if they covered? But I mean, yeah, just solid game for us. Good way to start the tournament off, I thought. We had all 5 starters in double-figure scoring, led by Kenny Williams, shooting 6 for 8 overall, 4 for 5 from the three-point line with 18 points. And then we had Theo with 15 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. So he got close to that triple-double that he never ended up getting in his career, but a lot of people had talked about. Joel Berry, 14 points, shot 6 for 15, 2 for 9 from 3, though a little not great there. And then Cam Johnson, 12 points, 7 rebounds, did have 5 turnovers. And then Luke May did not shoot well. He shot 2 for 9, 1 for 3 from three-point line, 10 points, 9 rebounds. He missed that double again. And then off the bench, only guys in double-figure minutes were Garrison and Sterling, with 16 and 10 respectively. Garrison gave us 7 points, just 1 rebound, 3 assists though. Of course, some good defense as he usually does. And then Sterling Manley, 6 points, 10 rebounds in his 10 minutes. And then we had Andrew and B-Rob gave us 7 minutes each. And then 7th gave us 2, and the rest just 1 minute there. In cleanup stuff. But yeah, like I said, kind of a just nonchalant first game of the tournament, and I thought was going to be building momentum for us as we went forward in this tournament. Of course, as we'll move into the Texas A&M game, that's not how it turned out, but shot the ball pretty well, 52% from the field, 41% from 3, 72 from the free throw line. We held them to 36% shooting, 25% shooting from 3, which was kind of the question, is whether they would be able to shoot the three and stay in the game. But yeah, not a whole lot to say there besides we kind of took care of business and we moved on, and we didn't get the major upset like someone else in our conference. So, but then as we moved into the Texas A&M game, I actually was really confident about this game. I don't know, I was not worried. Somebody asked me right as it was starting, it's like, "Are you worried about this game?" It's one of my Kentucky friends. I was like, I'm not really. I thought if we could neutralize them inside, which we've been able to do with big guys all year. We've been a great rebounding team. We beat Bagley and Carter, that lineup, with Bolden as well, coming off the bench twice this year. I just thought we'd be able to at least neutralize them, and then if we can get out and run, which again I thought has typically been easier for North Carolina. When we play in conference, we play the Virginias, we play Syracuse in that zone, and even Duke this year has kind of slowed us down a little bit. They do a better job of obviously knowing us better and then thus stopping our fast break and slowing us down. Usually when you get the tournament, people are like, "Oh, we'll run with Kentucky," or whatever, and we can enforce our will on them a little bit more or easier. And it just didn't happen in this game. The first 5 minutes we came out frantic pace, and I thought that's what we want. We're doing well. We got out to, I think, a 9-point lead. And actually, our largest lead was, I guess, 7. This is our largest lead in this game. First 5 minutes looked well. I think it did. People were saying that's when Roy subbed and kind of made a big difference. But really, the game just changed. It started slowing down. They started being more meticulous, getting it inside to their big guys, and they just started dominating. The only difference really between Bagley and Carter and Bolden compared to in this game with Robert Williams and Tyler Davis is they have more experience. They're older, but they are very talented, very athletic. But when you look at talent-wise, Duke is a lot more talented than this team, and the athleticism is there for Duke as well with both those big guys. I guess the other big difference is the third guy, DJ Hogue, is 6'9". Which we match up with fine. We have Cam Johnson there at the 3 at 6'8". But he, still has that athleticism, can shoot from outside. Whereas Duke drops down to Gary Trent. And the next one doesn't have that third kind of big guy. So I don't know if that's what made the big difference or what. I don't know. But after the first, I'd say 7 minutes of this game, it just kind of turned. They started dominating the boards. They started dominating inside, second chance points, and just doing whatever they wanted to. And they had, Starks, their guard, ended up with 21 points. Tyler Davis, 18 points, 9 rebounds. Robert Williams, 8 points, but 13 rebounds. And it wasn't even, when I said it already, I think back on its offensive rebounds. Tyler Davis had 3 of them. They only had 7 offensive rebounds as a team. And we actually we had 9 offensive rebounds. So it wasn't even that. They were just scoring every time. And it just completely turned. They went on a big run. Of course, people are saying, no timeout by Roy. Tournament game now. We got to change. We got to take that timeout and stuff. Whatever. That's not going to change anything by saying that. But they just kept rolling, and we just didn't hit shots. We were. You have to give, obviously, and Roy says this in every post conference that we lose. You got to give them credit. But we were 1 for 13 in the first half, 7%, I guess, round up to 8% shooting from 3 in the first half. But we ended up 1 for 17, 1 for 8. I know I saw 1 for 17 at one point, and then I saw 2 for 19. So I'm not sure which one we made there, but that's that's horrendous. And then I said one of the keys to this goal, or to this game, as far as getting that one run, but we're also going to have to hit shots. And I've said on this podcast, if you've listened to this podcast in the past, we're going to live and die by the 3 this year. And usually you say that about Duke, it's like they're going to get upset and stuff because they live and die by the 3. But really, it was our best option this year. So it wasn't like I was nagging on the team like, oh, we're shooting too many threes. We're going to die by the 3 eventually. It was our best option, but that's what happens then. And obviously we got upset. We were favored to win this game. We were the 2 seed. They were the 7 seed. But it's not like this is like this isn't like Duke losing to Mercer, Duke losing to Lehigh in the first round, games like that. So it's, I mean, we shoot bad like that. We don't control the tempo. We let them kill us inside, and this is going to happen. So it turned out, I actually thought when we got the bracket, we would probably play Providence, and I thought Providence was probably a worse matchup for us. But as it turned out, this just was a horrible matchup for us. They had struggled all year. I mean, looking at their record, they're 22-12 right now. They were picked to win the SEC, and then they had suspensions, they had injuries and stuff, and they never got kind of where they're supposed to be according to their talent. I even said on this podcast, I went and watched the Vanderbilt Texas A&M game, and I just wasn't impressed. Like, they beat Vanderbilt easily, but they just didn't look, anything special. And they got it rolling against Providence, and they're going now, and we'll see how far they go after this. But just stings for the Tar Heels. Joel Berry led us with 21 points. Again, shot 7 for 17, 2 for 10 from 3. Obviously, nobody shot well from the 3. We went 6 for 31 overall. He ended up with 21 points, so that looks good. He had 5 rebounds. Looks where you normally see Joel, but it just wasn't the same performance that we normally get. And Luke 13-11, so he got his double-double, but again, he shot 6 for 16, 1 for 4 from 3. And that's the only guys we had in double figures. We ended up, Cam Johnson, 7 points, shot 1 for 7 from 3. Theo, 4 points, 7 rebounds. He did have 11 assists. Wow, that's the first time I've seen that line. Even when I looked at this, it didn't kind of register with me. But and I saw early he had like 4 points, 4 rebounds, and a couple of assists. And someone's tweeting out, there's the triple-double watch for Theo. But yeah, didn't score again. He shot 2 for 7 overall, 0 for 2 from 3. And Kenny Williams as well, 2 for 8 overall, 1 for 5 from 3, 5 points, 4 rebounds. And then again, Garrison Sterling gave us the only double-digit minutes off the bench. 3 points, couple of rebounds for Garrison, 5 points, a rebound for Sterling. And it ends our season, which sucks. We shot 33% from the field, so we shot horrible, pretty much, especially compared to their 52% for the game. We allowed them to shoot 50% in the first half, 54% in the second half. They shot 42% from 3. We ended up 19%. So you take that. If we were 2 for 19, that means the rest of the game we went 4 for 12. Which is still 33%. Not great from 3, especially when that's kind of what we had to do. And we kept shooting, which kind of double-edged sword. You say, well, we got to get inside. We're not hitting threes, but we also needed to come back. And we had wide open looks that we were missing. Shots that you just can't pass up, really, and we were just missing them. And so it stings, especially the day after. Looking at all the other stats, points in the paint, off of turnovers, second chance points, fast break points, bench points, is all right there, very even. And big difference is the shooting percentage, of course. And they shot 60 shots, we shot 78 shots for the game, but we shot 33%. They shot 52%. We shot 31 threes, they shot 24, but they shot 42%. They shot over double our percentage from 3. Just not going to win that way. We had 17 assists to 6 turnovers. So again, it wasn't turnover stuff. We forced 14 turnovers on them. They did have 8 blocks. It was a factor. They were blocking our shots quite a bit. So it comes to an end. We're 26-11. And later on, I don't know if I'll do it next week or maybe even after the tournament's over in April. Have kind of an end of the season, looking back at the whole season for the Tar Heels. Go through our preseason predictions. If you included yours, if you sent yours in, I'll go through and we'll see how people did there. 26-11 overall for the Tar Heels. Some people saying we overachieved. Obviously, when we saw the bracket and the way the season went, people thought we should at least make the Sweet 16, if not the Elite 8. I guess a lot of the national media guys were taking us to lose to Michigan, so at least the Sweet 16. But yeah, not meant to be. As much as it stings, you have to kind of look back at the last 3 years we had, the runs we had. Um, you know, North Carolina fans will never get this, but other fan bases just don't have this. You know, went to the Tennessee game and was in their arena, and just the banners that they don't have. Just success is not there for basketball in them. Went to the Vanderbilt game in their arena, and just the atmosphere just completely different. Like there's just nothing. Like nobody was paying attention to the game. It seems like just nothing going on, and we'll never appreciate it fully, but we do have to kind of appreciate, especially, and people are doing a good job appreciating Joel and Theo, what they gave and what they meant to this program the last few years. And obviously that makes it harder now that they're seniors, they're leaving. But people are appreciating that, so that's good. But as a whole, this program and the success that we've had over the years, I mean, over decades, but even the last, 3 years and 2 years, especially going to the championship game 2 years in a row and runners up, and then going back to win the championship, like that never happens. And always being competitive in the ACC, and yeah, we'll never appreciate it. And me saying this isn't going to make other people appreciate it enough to really appreciate it. But we do have to look at those kind of things. And like I said, I'll do a full kind of end of the season podcast looking back. But we do have to kind of thank and remember Joel and Theo as they go out now as seniors. Really the only two that we have to replace. I say only two that we have to replace, but just two guys that we have to replace, but obviously huge holes left in the program as leaders, and what they contributed, the competitiveness of Joel. I think, the camaraderie, the chemistry that Theo allowed these teams last few years to have, and keeping guys loose and stuff like that. And for us as fans as well, to see them having fun makes it more fun for us, and just more enjoyable. So, we have to thank them as they go out, and now we have to move on. Again, later on in that podcast, I'll look ahead to filling those gaps of what we have to do. Obviously, a huge gap at point guard, and now playmaker. As Theo goes out, other guys have to improve and get better, including obviously with the year that Luke was having early. I'd say possible go to the NBA or try it out, or at least declaring and see what people say at the combine and then come back. The way he kind of ended, I don't think he could still declare and go to the combine, and it's probably better that Kenny and Cam should probably do the same thing. Just kind of get feedback like Justin did that year. And really you should do that every year now that it's allowed, but don't really expect to lose those guys. A lot to come back. And again, as fun as they've had over these past years, last couple of years, you'd say, why not do it again? None of those guys are going to be high draft picks or anything like that. So, and then the young big guys, Garrison, Sterling, and even some of the young guards, Seventh's got to step up big. B-Rob's got to be able to contribute more, get stronger still. Huffman's got to come around and be more polished so that he can contribute off the bench. And then we do have some nice pieces coming in, but we know they're freshmen as well. So, we'll see how it goes. And I'll talk more about that later on, but kind of concludes the Tar Heel season this year. The 2017-18 season for our Tar Heels is done. As sad as that is, hopefully this podcast isn't too monotone and too depressing or sad, but it's kind of the mood. Then looking up to, I still got to pull up a bracket here, or at least the games, so I know what's going on and don't miss anything. As far as big storylines that happened, there's plenty of those. Plenty of storylines that have happened in the first weekend. The biggest probably being another ACC team, Virginia, losing to a 16 seed, first time ever. A 16 seed has beat a 1 seed in 136 tries now, or it took 136 tries. But it didn't stop there either. We had, tons of upset, especially when you look at your bracket on the left-hand side, the South region, the West region. The South region is the first time ever that the 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds didn't make the Sweet 16. So now Kentucky, of course, gets the benefit of that with being the highest seed left. And even in that, Loyola had a buzzer beater against Miami and then comes back and beats Tennessee, not necessarily at the buzzer, but very late in that game. Buffalo's big upset over Arizona again. That seems like a long time ago, but just dominating Arizona on, I believe that was Thursday night. Nevada coming back to beat Texas in overtime. Looking at the first round here, second round in that South region. Nevada being down 22 to Cincinnati before they came back and won at the end there to move on to the Sweet 16. And then Cincinnati and Virginia as well, having like the two top defenses and not making the Sweet 16. I talked about Loyola over Tennessee. Kentucky over Buffalo was a non-story. Kansas State, UNBC was kind of an ugly game. And then down in North Carolina's bracket, last night, Florida State, another ACC team, upsetting Xavier, kind of fighting their way back. Xavier kind of shooting themselves in the foot there a little bit. Let's see, what else is there? I mean, Gonzaga beating Ohio State. Wasn't a great game. Michigan buzzer beater over Houston. That was late, Saturday night? Like the last seconds of basketball on Saturday night. Phenomenal. Not that it was an upset there. Michigan's the 3 seed. A lot of people had them picked into the Final Four, or at least in the Elite 8. So not a surprise there, but just the way they did that, phenomenal, I guess. What we want in March. As John Rothstein would say, this is March. And then moving up to the East region, this side is not as bad as that side. A little bit more chalk. And actually in the East region, we almost have complete chalk. We have the 1, 2, 3, and 5 seeds left. So Wichita State getting upset by Marshall in the first round, but then Marshall getting blown out by West Virginia in the second round to West Virginia. Alabama having a great game with Virginia Tech in the first round, not showing up against Villanova in the second round. Florida, Texas Tech was a good game, but kind of Texas Tech took care of business there. Purdue losing Haas in that first round to the fractured elbow injury, and then Butler almost pulling that upset over them there, but they move on. And then down in the Midwest region, we're left with Kansas, Clemson. So I guess the 1, 2, and then a 5 and 11. Biggest story, I guess, is Syracuse there upsetting TCU in the first round, and then upsetting Michigan State, which Michigan State just, there's no reason they should lose that game. They kind of like us, just could not hit a 3, and then they kept taking it against the zone. Not that we did well against Texas A&M zone for whatever reason compared to other zones, but yeah, Michigan State just, I don't know, that was kind of mind-boggling. But Duke easily over Iona, and then easily over Rhode Island there. Then yeah, the Michigan State Syracuse game. And Syracuse holding teams shooting, I don't know, 30% or under 30% from 3 so far this tournament. Auburn and Clemson, those are both kind of popular upsets to have them losing, but then both advancing, then Clemson just throttling. I don't think I watched a second of that game because Clemson got out to a big lead and just never looked back. I think somebody tweeted out, Clemson got to 70 before Auburn got to 30. So that was crazy. And then the 1-16 that everybody was worried about, Kansas Penn. Kansas had them win by 16. NC State, the third, well, I guess the second, well, technically the first team, but one of 2 teams to go out in the first round for the ACC. One of 3 teams, including our Tar Heels, not left in the tournament. But yeah, you look besides North Carolina, and those are big ones. You can't say just besides, but Virginia and North Carolina both getting upset in the first 2 rounds, North Carolina losing. Besides that, the ACC has done well. Duke looks really strong. Syracuse with 2 upset victories. Florida State with the upset over number 1 Xavier. I feel like I'm still missing another ACC team. There's someone else out there that I don't know. I can't think of it right now, but maybe that's it. How many teams did we get in? I thought we got 8 in. We got 3 out. And then 1, 2. Oh, Clemson, yeah, looking strong as well. We'll see if they can upset Kansas here, which I mean, they could do. The problem is I would like them if they could get it on the short rest as opposed to the long rest here. Um, and so, yeah, that leaves us with our Sweet 16 now. It's really easy to go through and kind of pick chalk. It's really easy to pick Kentucky over Kansas State. It would be easy for, say, well, Chicago had their run. Nevada's going to beat them now, and Kentucky probably comes out of that bracket. Then we got Gonzaga, Florida State. People think Florida State has no business being there, which maybe is true, but so Gonzaga is probably going to win. Michigan, Texas A&M might be an interesting matchup there. They may have the same troubles with us as stopping that inside. We'll just see how Texas A&M plays. That's the thing is, well, that's everybody this year. We said it in the regular season. Anybody can beat anybody. But it really just depends on Texas A&M which team shows up, the one that was inconsistent all year, or the one that dominated us on Sunday. So, and then Duke, everybody would expect them to blow out Syracuse. I think everybody would pick Kansas over Clemson. That one might be at least a good matchup. Purdue, Texas Tech should be a good game. Hopefully the 2-3 there. West Virginia with the press against Villanova. We'll see how Villanova handles that. Like I said, I kind of had that game picked, and I picked Villanova to win because they're not on the short rest, they're the long rest. They get the longer chance to look at that press and see how they dissect it. Plus, they have multiple ball handlers to be able to handle the press. And we'll see how that goes. So it'd be easy to kind of go through and just kind of pick chalk and toss up a couple of games and stuff like that. But as crazy as this tournament's been, who knows? Maybe just the first weekend's going to be crazy. Now it's going to level off and some of the top teams go. Obviously, as Tar Heel fans, we want anybody but Duke to win. We don't want Kentucky to make it or even go, even though they have kind of an easy, which is ironic that they have such an easy road here. They could get to the Final Four without beating. I mean, they would have beat the 12 seed, the 13 seed. Then now they'll play the 9 seed, and then they play either the 7 or 11 seed. So they could get to the Final Four without playing a 6 seed at worst, and possibly even without playing a top 8 seed if Loyola Chicago were to upset them. And then they won't have to play a 1 or a 2 at all to get to the championship game because we know they can't come out of the West region where North Carolina was. So, I mean, yeah, they could end up here having to play Kansas State, Nevada, which I guess is the top seed left besides them. And out of ours, they could play Michigan or Gonzaga and be in the championship game, which is just kind of crazy. But Duke is the same kind of way. They played Iona, played Rhode Island, where they just totally outmatched them. Now they play Syracuse, an 11 seed. And then they could end up playing another ACC team in Clemson if Clemson upsets Kansas. And they're in the Final Four, which seems like kind of an easy road. I think if you gave North Carolina that, you could play Iona, Rhode Island, Syracuse, and Clemson. I think we would take that. So yeah, we got to cheer for we cheer first for Syracuse to beat them. Otherwise, probably Kansas. But the thing is, I don't think Kansas matches up with Duke all that well, just because they don't have hardly any big guys. And if Duke's smart, which, I mean, we beat them with not very many big guys, but pounded in and let Bagley and Carter and Bolden and stuff go to work, and then hit a couple of threes to spread them out. I mean, Kansas shoots a lot and makes a lot of threes, but they're going to have to be kind of out of their mind there to really stay with Duke for 40 minutes. And so we really probably need Villanova to go to Final Four to beat Duke. But it's like, then do we want Villanova to win the championship again? They'd have 2 in 3 years. And people have asked me who I want to win, and I asked on Twitter who people want to say. Most of them said not Duke, Kansas, not Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, stuff like that. To me, I said I want a team that has not won it in my lifetime to win it. So that takes out, obviously, Duke, Kansas, Villanova, Kentucky. And then it takes out Syracuse because they won it with Carmelo Anthony in 3? And then it would take out Michigan because they won it in '89 with Glenn Rice on that crazy run. And I wouldn't care if Michigan won it that much. But if you took out Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, Villanova, and Syracuse for me, those 5, I wouldn't really care who else won it that much. And then, if you took Michigan out as well, then I really wouldn't care. It'd be crazy to see Florida State make a run like that. Obviously Loyola Chicago would be historical with an 11 seed there. Nevada would be fun. The only thing in Nevada, it would be kind of funny because they have the Martin twins from NC State. If they could get to the Final Four or even win it with some state players, but of course, then State's gonna chipper about that. Texas A&M, part of me says, if they go win it, they kind of validates our loss. But it's saying other side of me says I don't want them to ever win another game because they beat us like that. So Clemson, I said I don't know if I want them to win because I just wanted football, and then they're going to start chirping about they got football and basketball and that kind of stuff. I'd be okay with Texas Tech, Purdue, West Virginia, any of those teams. So. First it boils down to we don't want Duke and Kentucky, I think. Then you could probably throw in Kansas, and you probably throw in Villanova, and then the rest of them we're probably okay with, at least the realistic ones to win it. So that's kind of my take on the tournament going forward, if that means anything. I do want to thank you guys for jumping in and listening. Before I ended, I said I would do the question and comments like I've been doing on this. And if you ever want your question or your comment or something I should talk about on the podcast, kind of acknowledged or whatever, definitely shoot me a message on Twitter, a DM, or on Instagram. Both of those are at AllTarHeelDan. Or you even in the comments on YouTube, you could do it. Say, hey, on the next podcast, could you talk about this? Or email as well, unchoopstalk@gmail.com. I do hope that wherever you're listening that you are subscribed. I hope you share this. And even as we go into the off season here without any more Tar Heel basketball, I hope you'll stay with me and continue in the conversation of Tar Heel basketball and in uniting Tar Heel Nation, which is my goal, of course. I've said that many times over this podcast. But Grant Bowden, very regular watcher on YouTube, as I've been streaming this live on YouTube, and I've been doing this one on Periscope. So if anybody on Periscope has something, you can throw up a question, comment, and we'll go through it. But Graham Bowden just says, thanks for the effort and commitment, Joel and Theo. The program is now better because you were part of it. I don't think we can ever say enough to those guys, and hopefully we get another group. We've had Bryce and Joel 2 years ago. We had the guys go out on a championship last year with Kennedy and Isaiah and Nate, and you could even throw Justin in there that left early. Now we got Joel and Theo. Let's see who are our juniors next year. Then we got Luke and Kenny next year, and Cam as well, even though he hasn't been here the whole time. And then we'll see kind of what B-Rob means. Who else are our sophomores this year? Seventh Woods. Kind of see how they develop and if they mean the same to the program as some of these guys. It's going to be hard to obviously match up to Bryce and Marcus. Everybody feels bad for them because they didn't get the championship, and they did kind of weather that scandal. And then Joel, Justin, Theo coming in, even though we had that over the program, committing to the program, and then obviously Joel and Theo being the winners they are and competitors and stuff like that, and also the fun they've had. Going to be hard to match up to kind of those two sets, but. Will be interesting. Of course, we'll be watching as Tar Heel Nation. And then Grant says, wondering if there's any word of a point guard looking to transfer in. I'm sure there's point guards out there that are transferring. Obviously, every player on Pitt is not transferring out after Stallings' fire. Well, probably would have even more if Stalling was there. But Pitt is losing everybody. I don't think somebody commented like, oh, Roy's going to be contacting all of them. I don't think Roy wants an entire roster of 0-19 or players that went 0-19 in the ACC. I'm sure there's point guards out there. I don't know that there's going to be any at the caliber that we want, that we wouldn't already have. Seventh, who's been in the program, even though he's been injured. We got Kobe White coming in as the our top prospect probably. As far as point guards go, we got Leaky Black that can play a little bit of point guard. We'll talk more about that as we get into the podcast recapping and looking ahead for just the Tar Heels. But wondering about transfers, and I don't know what the scholarship. I think we maybe have one for next year that we would be left. I think Roy's been trying to get another big guy or like a big wing, 3-4 kind of guy. So I don't know what, and obviously it would depend on if Cam were to come back, which I think he will, but that kind of thing. So Yeah, that's all the comments and questions I got there, and that's all I had on my bracket. I'll come back probably next week. Of course, then we'll just be looking at what happened in the second rounds, or I should say second weekend, the third and fourth round, the Sweet 16, Elite Eight, to also kind of preview the Final Four. As sad as that's going to be without the Tar Heels in it, we'll preview that, and then we'll see if I kind of do one for the championship game. Obviously, not as much motivation without the Tar Heels there, but then recapping the college basketball season, and like I've been saying, recapping the Tar Heel season as well. But I do again want to thank everybody for joining in the conversation, listening, watching, hopefully sharing this podcast out. The numbers this year, I've said it too many times, I know that, but the numbers have blown me away, and I hope you'll stay with me through the off season. After those podcasts, after April, we will go to once a month podcasts. So again, if you have topics, if anything that want to be discussed, or if you want to come on the podcast, we can possibly arrange that. Just get at me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or email as well. And all those links will be in the description as well. So that is all I got. As we always do here, until next time, go Heels.